Now we're going to talk about alliteracy. I don't know if it's alliteracy or alliteracy. I suppose it could be atheist. So long A, but anyway, and I don't know that the term has caught on that well, but I can't think of another term that has come to take its place that would do any better. Notice that the top of the page says literacy, alliteracy, and illiteracy. So we have three categories. I'd like you to maybe fill this chart in. Notice at the bottom, three sources where I first heard about this. Actually, I first heard about it on Chuck Colson's Breakpoint commentary about book-free zones. When I checked to see if this was still a valid link, it took me to his website, and then if you search for book-free zones, then you come up with a commentary. As far as the Kylene Beers, no time, no interest, no way, you will get links to probably an Eric abstract, and that probably would give you enough information if you're curious about checking my sources to get you going. The next one, the Washington Post article about alliteracy, is where Chuck Colson kind of got his idea. And I went there, and I think you have to actually join their website or be a member in order to look that up. But the idea is the person that was talked about in the Breakpoint commentary was Jeremy Spritzer, and he was a functional illiterate. He chose not to read. He could read, but he just chose not to read. And so we have people who are literate and they are avid readers. All right, so that would be what would go in the first box. All right, someone who is literate, they are avid readers. And a description of them, they can read and they do. And what do you do for them? What's the prescription? Well, encourage them. And if you have students like that, you can even challenge them. All right, encourage them and challenge them. Okay, the next category, the one that we're focusing on though, and I think this is where the majority of your students will fall. I know that's what I found to be the case. These are the illiterates. They are reluctant readers. A definition is people who know how to read but prefer not to. Now in Kylene Beer's article, especially in the abstract, there are the three voices of alliteracy. Dormant would be no time, uncommitted would be no interest, and unmotivated would be no way. So let's talk about the no time people. In a way, I feel like I'm in this category. I can read. I just don't have time. There are so many things. I guess that's one thing I like about being an adolescent lit teacher is that in a way I can justify my reading. I have an excuse for reading and I don't feel guilty about it, I guess. These are people who can read well, all right, a description, they read well, but they just don't have time. They like to read. They have good attitudes about reading, but there are other factors that are more pressing. Maybe when they were children, they were read to. They had a library card. They went to the library. They were great readers. But now you think about kids in high school. They have jobs. They're involved in sports. They're involved in church. And they just don't have time to read. So what's the prescription? Provide time for them. Or sometimes it means reading easier books. Maybe they will read the poetry novels that you can read in an hour and still get away with it. Or maybe short stories because you can read them in a little bit of time. So provide books or materials that are of interest to them. Let them discuss. Make sure they have access to books. Okay, our next category of illiterates, are the ones who have no interest in reading. They're uncommitted. As far as the description, They don't care much for reading. They're open to it, but um, they really could take it or leave it. Not exactly a negative attitude, although some might. And that's one thing. These are generalities, right? It's kind of hard to pigeonhole people, but these are ones, they are not the no time ones. They have no interest. They would much rather play video games or do anything else, watch TV. I don't know. So, what can we do for them? A lot of times it helps to read to them or read with them. If they're in a book club and you're motivating them with some carrot, or even just the attention that you give to them, that might be something. Talk about books with them. Maybe they need help visualizing a selection. And so that would be something that you could do. A lot of times they would prefer to read nonfiction. Okay, not necessarily, but some are in that category. Maybe if you are using books in school, you would have something that would be an added activity like that would involve artwork, some related activities that they could also do to show their interest in what they're reading. And in the last category of the illiterates, we have the unmotivated readers, and these guys would be the no way would they want to read. For them, a description, reading is torture. They have a negative attitude. Now they can read. All right, it's not that they can't read. It's just they will think of anything they can do to avoid reading. They have no future plans to read. They have negative attitudes toward reading and towards readers. So what do we do for them? Well, you still are going to require it. They don't get a pass. Let them read short and easy books. Narrow the selection. They will need help visualizing. Praise them when they do read. There's a difference between these two categories, the uncommitted and unmotivated, and the dormant. Remember, dormant have good attitudes toward reading. But the next two, reading is more of a chore. It's a skill instead of something that they would do for pleasure. Dormant people, they would read if they had the time. It's just they don't have the time. It's not the highest thing on their priority list. So we have no time, no interest, and no way. Now, this next category is somewhere in between the illiterates and the illiterates. They're slow readers. These people are unskilled readers. So we have dormant, uncommitted, unmotivated. These are the ones that struggle. And so a description, they're borderline illiterate. What can you do for them? They might need remedial help. If they have a book on tape that they could read along with, that would help. A book on tape, we've talked about this before. You've got someone who is using expression, who is correctly pronouncing the words and having the right phrasing, and that will help them. Another thing that you might be able to do for them is to find the movie and just show the opening segment. Don't show the whole movie first, but show them a little bit of the movie so that they can picture the characters, picture the setting, and then go ahead and read it. Another thing about this group is there are some classics that are illustrated. I don't know that they're necessarily graphic novels. Maybe they are, but they're more very well illustrated classics. One of the things you need to remember about this group is to avoid embarrassing them. Avoid calling on them, because reading is already painful to them. We don't need to throw it back in their face that they are not strong readers. Well, illiterate, these are students who cannot comprehend, cannot decode. They can't look at the words other than maybe the basic sight words and put two and two together and come up with four. So these folks need to be taught. They need to maybe have special classes or programs that will help them learn how to read. Tutoring, and again, give them easy materials that they're going to be interested in to help them out. There are a couple resources that I have included in your notes. The first one is a PowerPoint called Motivating Middle School Students to Read Aliteracy by Lexi McDuffie. I don't know who she is, but there were some points that I thought were pretty good, and so I copied her PowerPoint and included it in my notes. One of the things I'd like to point out to you is that she has down 10 reasons to read, and maybe keep in mind that in your journal when you turn it in for your final grade, this is something that I would like to see included. Reasons to read, why reading is good or beneficial or whatever. The next one is Promoting an Addiction to Reading. Leslie B. Preddy. She again talks about apathetic and reluctant readers who are illiterate because they can read but they choose not to. And she has 9 traits of an effective reader. And there are some good ideas there that she has. One of the things that stood out to me was the idea of you can get rid of a book that you don't like. I don't know why. For some reason it was drilled in me that if you start a book you should finish it. And that is still a hang up I have to overcome and allow myself. If I don't like a book, why am I reading it when there are so many other books that there are to read? So just some extra things to help you with the idea of illiteracy, a trend in reading. We'll always have this struggle, but it seems like more and more we're battling it because of the competition with electronic things, TV, and you know what? You have to use your brain to read. And that kind of is a segue to the next part where we talk about higher order thinking. One of the things, though, that especially for us as Christians, I wish I could find an article that I had read, and I don't see it on the internet anymore, but it's called Reading Between the Lines by Gene Edward Veith. And he talks about the fact that if we do not read, what does that do for our Bible study and our knowledge of God's Word? God in Genesis 1:1, not Genesis 1:1, John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. You know, he didn't use visuals or pictures. He uses the Word. And so kids have to know how to read, how to comprehend, make sense of it all, and apply that. So I give to you aliteracy. So please know the different kinds of aliteracy, especially dormant, uncommitted, unmotivated, a description of them, and what we can do for them.